Welcome to the special series on CAT by Careers 360. In today's video, we're going to talk about the test-taking strategies for the CAT, the Common Admission Test to the IIMs. CAT is considered one of the difficult exams. But when you look at the real overall paper, it has basic mathematics, quantitative aptitude, which is of 8th, 9th and 10th class levels, data interpretation and logical reasoning, a little bit of training, little bit of practice will get you there, and verbal ability and reading comprehension. Anybody who has gone through 10th class, probably a little more ideally in English medium, but even otherwise, if one has gone through their basic schooling well, this exam is not difficult to crack. However, only 1% or 2% of them finally make it to the final coveted IIMs. The reason is very simple. While the paper is easy, the questions are easy, what happens in the 2 hours of the exam makes all the difference. In this video, and specifically useful for those people who have already started preparing for CAT and have written at least one mock, I will take you through how to attempt the CAT exam, each of the sections, and to make sure that you maximize your scores. Let's start with understanding the CAT over the years. I have looked at only the last 4 years. When you look at the numbers, out of something like 198 marks or 204 marks, one requires just about 85 to 95 marks. What does this mean? It means that one needs just about 50% of the total marks available in the CAT paper to be at the 99th percentile. To get to the 99th percentile, if you are only looking at getting half the score of the total paper, it should be very easy. Why then is it very difficult? Let's look at the number that I've put it on screen for you. 99 percentile in 2024 CAT, the marks required was only 95. In 23, it was only 76 out of 198, mind you. Even if you look at the other 2 years, it is about that 85 to 95 mark range. 68 or 66 questions if you look at from these 4 CAT papers, it definitely appears easy. What then is the way to make sure that you reach that score? Let's look at how the paper is, what kinds of scores are required, and I'm going to focus on 2 specific percentiles, 99 percentile and 95 percentile. To get a 99 percentile, if you look at the number, you need 95 marks out of 204, which means if you can get 32 net questions correct, just 32 net questions correct, because every question has plus 3 marks for getting it correct and minus 1 mark for a wrong answer. So I'm looking at 32 net questions correct. You will make the 95, 96 marks, and that's a 99 percentile. Or even if you want to look at a 95 percentile, 95 percentile is about 70 marks. 70 marks is 24 questions, 23, 24 questions. In a paper which has 68 questions and you have full 2 hours to prepare for, you are expected to do only 24 questions net correct. What do you mean by net correct? And that's what I will look at in the next screen. So to get that kind of a 99 or a 95 percentile, you need to have a broad strategy of attempting the exam. Which is the right way to attempt depends on what is your level as such. So let's look at, for example, to get a 99 percentile, you needed 32 net questions. How do you get these 32 net questions? Well, you attempt 32 and get all the 32 correct. But then you will require 100% accuracy in that. Or you can attempt 40 and get 34 correct. Remember, for every question correct, you can make 3 mistakes, correct? So if you attempt 40 out of the 68 questions, you can get 34 correct and 6 wrong, you will still get 96 marks, which is again 99 percentile. There is no difference between accuracy. No, you don't have to worry about, is accuracy important? No, it is not. It is only the marks that are important. So 96 marks you can get with attempting 40 questions and getting 34 correct. But then the accuracy required will be 85% accuracy. Look at one more possibility. 48 attempts, 36 correct. That means you can make 12 mistakes. At 75% accuracy level, you can still make a 99 percentile. Then look at one more choice. If you can attempt 60 out of the 68 questions, breaks, there could be a strategy wherein you will say you will keep going and attempting as many as possible at 65% accuracy. Remember, 2 out of 3 questions being correct, that's it, approximately 2 out of 3 questions being correct, you can still make a 99 plus percentile. Which means it is not very difficult, but you need to figure out what should be your strategy. Are you a person who is going to be highly accurate, or are you a person who don't mind attempting a little more, get a little bit of mistakes in the paper, yet the overall requirement is to get that 99 plus percentile. Now let me also look at the 95 percentile mark. Why 95 percentile? Because if you look at all the newer IIMs, even if you are a general category student, newer IIMs will give you an interview call at 95 plus percentile. So to get 95 percentile, you need 24 net questions correct. What do you mean by net questions? 24 net correct means 24 you attempt, you should get 24 correct. That is 100% accuracy. But if I attempt 40 questions and get only 28 correct, at 70% accuracy, you will still get a 95 percentile. And you can actually attempt 56 out of 65, get 32 correct, and the rest, 24 wrong. At just about a 57-58% accuracy level, you can still get a net score of 72 and definitely a 95 plus percentile. So even if you are a general category male candidate, I'm using the word male candidate because if you are a female candidate, you will have a little bit of a leeway, you can get a slightly lesser percentile because of the extra weightage given to you or additional marks given to you for a woman. If you are an SC, ST or a OBC or a EWS, you will get much better chances of getting it at a lower percentile. But even if you are, we call it a general engineer male, a GEM, at 56 attempts, 57% accuracy, not great accuracy, you remember? You can still make a 95 plus percentile. This is very, very real, provided when you attempt the exam, you attempt it in a very structured, strategic way to make sure that you decide or you figure out what is your method of doing it and implement that in the actual exam. So what I'll do is take you through each of the 3 sections, and while you start writing the mocks, when you start writing the mocks, you will know what is your broad accuracy levels. Once you understand what are your accuracy levels, then the strategy to attempt less number of questions or attempt more number of questions becomes absolutely clear for you. This, I think you can take a decision more closer to October of every year, because typically the CAT exam is in November end. That means about a month and a half to 2 months before the actual CAT exam, you will kind of finalize what should be your strategy in terms of going for higher number of attempts, or because you are good in attempting less and having a higher accuracy level, so that you get the kind of desired marks to get the right percentile. So before I go into each of the sections, it is also important for you to understand what are the elements of a success, elements of your success. There are 2 parts of the game. The first is you should know yourself. What is that meaning of knowing yourself? You should know from each of the 3 areas what are your zones of comfort, your zone of comfort. What is that zones or zone of comfort? What are the areas you are good in, very good in, or not so good in? When I'm using the word not so good, it could be bad. For example, probability or permutations and combinations could be one area where you are bad in quantitative ability. So what? Leave it, no issues. But if you know that you're good in algebra, part of algebra, or if you're very good in arithmetic, again part of arithmetic, that is the area you have to focus on. Similarly for DILR, you are good in, let's say, arrangement kinds of sets. You are probably good in data interpretation with calculation kind of sets. That's good. If you know what you are good at, your ability to attempt the right kind of questions become much, much more easier. So, even before you embark on actually writing the CAT exam or the mocks for that matter, you need to know your zones of comfort. But one more important thing, it is not just your zones of comfort that matter. It's also important to understand this exam paper, CAT itself. Because CAT is very, very consistent in the way it has given for the last maybe 35 years that I have known. So knowing the exam paper is extremely important. What do you mean by knowing the exam paper? It means that every CAT exam worth its salt will have very, very similar kinds of a exam paper. If there are 68 or 66 or whatever number of questions, you know that there will be certain number of questions which will be easy, certain number of questions which will be very difficult, certain number of questions which will be easy, moderate, can be managed if you know your basic fundamentals. For example, even in the area or the zone of comfort that you are very good at, there could be a question or an area, a question from an area which will be very difficult. Your idea is not that just because you are very good, you will attempt those questions. In fact, the prudency will be to leave such kind of questions because you're going to save time. Similarly, even if you are not good in certain areas, knowing simple concepts, formulae, will help you to get the easy questions. Because we do not know till you go into the CAT exam hall which area will or which questions are going to be easy and these questions are from which areas. Unless you read them, you will never know. So, the elements of success depend, or your real success depends on your ability to match your zone of comfort, your comfort zone, your knowledge level, your speed level in areas that you are very, very good at or good at, to the actual CAT exam where there are questions which will be easy, moderate, or of course to avoid the ones which are difficult. So let's look at individual strategies, starting with verbal and reading comprehension. Typically, verbal and reading comprehension has, over the last so many years, had 24 questions in the exam section. 24 questions, 40 minutes. So I'm going to talk to you about two strategies which you can possibly use. Which ones are going to be really useful for you, I do not know. And I don't think anybody knows except yourself. You need to try that, experiment that in the various mocks that you write. Once you start writing the mocks and you experiment on a particular strategy, and if that strategy is not working, you will shift. And I'm giving you two strategies. That doesn't mean these are the only two strategies available. There can be multiple of them. But these are the most oft repeated, most used by most students who have been successful. 24 questions typically have 16 questions in reading comprehension, which are 4 passages, and 8 questions of verbal ability, odd para-jumbles, odd para-jumbles, sentence completion kind of questions, or para-summary. So, first one, you attempt area-wise. When I'm saying area-wise, though the questions can be jumbled up, like there will not be that all RC will be given at the same time and all verbal at the end kind of things, or the vice versa. But since you know that reading comprehension questions or the passage with 4 questions come in one single go, if there are 4 passages, you can kind of club them together in a set of RC and then do verbal. So how do you do this area-wise? First, allow about 30 minutes to reading comprehension and about 10 minutes to verbal ability. Ideally, start with RC. I'm not saying this is the right thing. So there is one set of students who will be very, very comfortable starting with reading comprehension. So 4 passages, anywhere between 28 to 30 minutes would be a good time to allocate to your reading comprehension area. But important thing, you need to have a stop loss at 30 minutes. Why is that required? Because the moment you give more than 30 minutes thinking that, okay, I have read the passage, therefore let me finish the questions, what you're doing unknowingly but actually knowingly is you are giving less time to your verbal ability, or that 8 questions which are there in verbal ability. So the idea is finish reading comprehension in about 28 to 30 minutes. 28 minutes means about 7 minutes per passage. Now you might say, sir, is it possible that I can do all the 4 sets in 30 minutes or 28 minutes? Sometimes some students come back and say, it takes almost 12 minutes, 13 minutes to do one set. Possible. But then we are talking about the actual CAT exam. When you take these mocks, when you keep experimenting, your job is not only to do the same thing again and again, but to slowly and steadily reduce the time you give to each of the sections, each of the passages, and therefore the 4 questions which come in the passages, so that on an average you come to that 7.5 minutes per passage. Initially, when you are starting off your mocks, maybe you can give about 10 minutes per passage. That means you need to do only 3, or you may only do 3 passages out of the 4 that are given to you. Eventually, the better thing would be to maximize your attempts. Then after the 30th minute, the last 10 minutes to be given to that 8 questions in verbal. You can start with a para summary or a sentence completion or an odd para jumble before coming to your para jumble questions. Because para jumble questions, while there are no negative marks for that, it will take you more time for that. Depending on the approximate time available, you take it. In that, you can attempt that para jumbles. In other words, in the 40 minutes that you do, you can attempt, if you attempt all the 4 RCs, that will make you 16 questions attempt, and out of the 8 questions, maybe about 5 to 7 questions you can attempt in verbal ability, together approximately 21 to 23 questions. If you do only 3 passages, will still be 17 to 19 or 17 to 18 questions attempts, which is decent attempt according to me. The second strategy in verbal ability is, once again, area-wise attempt, but start with a VA. But here, you're still allocating the same 30 minutes to VA, RC and 10 minutes to VA, but start with your VA. But here, don't give the entire 10 minutes in the first go. Give only 6 minutes or 7 minutes at the max. Try to attempt your para summary, your sentence completion, and if possible, the odd para jumble questions or odd sentence questions. Then solve the RCs and then come back to, if you have the 2 minutes, 3 minutes time for the para jumbles. The only reason I say this para jumbles at the last is, despite it being a non-theta question, it's a theta question, sorry, and it doesn't have a negative mark, you will know that the return on investment of time will be the least in para jumbles. Try this out, whether RC comes first or VA comes first. There is no correct, hard and fast rule for that. Now, there are a few people who will say, no, I will not do all RC together or all VA together. I'll start with 2 RCs, then a little bit of VA, then 2 RCs, and then a little bit of a VA, which is also fine. But have a strategy. Have a plan before you begin the exam, so that you stick to the plan as such. Then let's come to DILR. Once again, the one good thing, at least if you look at over the last 4-5 years, the CATs previously between 23, 22, 21, etc. used to have only 4 sets. 40 minutes, 4 sets looks a very good choice actually. But then if one set goes for a toss, and if you have spent enough time on a particular set and you are not able to crack it, especially if it is your strength area. Remember I told you the zones of comfort? In your zone of comfort, if the set that comes to you in the actual CAT exam is difficult, then you are done in 4. The good thing what happened, at least in 24, is they gave 5 sets, 22 questions. Now, hopefully that will continue for various other CAT exams also. So, the idea is, can we try to solve 3 to 4 sets? So how do you solve? There are two strategies once again. The first strategy is very simple. The idea is to check all the 5 sets and ensure that you attempt the easiest ones. But how do you know which one of the easiest ones are there? So one strategy comes here saying that every set you give about 2 minutes and then take a decision whether you would want to solve it or not. How do you decide that? That depends on your familiarity. That depends on the complexity of the set. That depends on, like I said, the zones of comfort. But if you think that you want to attempt this set, let's say it's a data interpretation set where it's calculations and you know how to solve it. It's a table. Or it could be an arrangement set. Or it could be something else. Even then, do not give more than 8 to 10 minutes for that. If you don't, if you believe that that set which is the first minute and you've given already 2 minutes, you're not able to solve, go to the next set. The idea is to see all the 5 sets and hopefully solve minimum 3 and if possible 4, depending on the level of difficulty of each of the sets. So an illustration of what can be done is given here. Set 1, 2 minutes. If you know that you want to solve, another 9 more minutes, that means approximately 11 minutes you will give for the set. Second set, 2 minutes, you know you don't want to solve, only 2 minutes lost. Third set, 2 minutes, you think that you can solve it, give another 8 more minutes, that means overall of 10 minutes. Maybe the fourth set you can't solve, but you have spent 2 minutes, remember this, which means at least you will know that, hey, I have seen the set and I have deliberately left that set out. Various reasons. It could be because it's difficult, it is not familiar, it is not your strength, it is not your zone of comfort, or whatever that may be. And the last set again, 2 minutes, can give about 10 minutes and finish that questions. This is one point here before I go to the strategy 2. It is important to understand that all questions may not be easy to solve. Which means if in a set there are 5 questions, you may want to solve only 3 or 4, because once the time is over, the time that you have set for yourself is over, 10 minutes, 12 minutes, whatever the time that you have set for is over, you just move on to the next set. One big mistake most students, almost all the students make is, because you have already spent time on a particular set, you have already spent time on solving for about 9-10 minutes and there is a one question left out, you would want to give that extra time, and that extra time could be 3-4 minutes, unfortunately. Because if it was an easy question, you would have finished it within the time given to you. Only those questions which will take you too much of time are the ones which get left out. The prudent thing once again would be to leave that out. In other words, every set, you don't have to complete all questions. You may want to complete only 3 or 4 questions out of the 5, or 3 questions out of 4, unless of course all the 4 or all the 5 questions in a particular set are completely easy. That you will get to know. And once again, the same idea, understanding this CAT exam is important. You can be 100% sure. I repeat, you can be 100% sure that if there are 5 sets in a CAT paper, there will be at least one set which can be solved very easily and probably in 6-7 minutes, forget about 10 minutes, if your fundamentals are good. Now let's look at the second strategy. Now this is what I think every expert worth his salt will say. That the idea is to select the easy sets, select the right sets. But there's no real easy way of selecting the right sets, to be precise. You will have to give time to each of the sets, look at what is familiar to you, look at or quickly decide what kind of a complexity is there, and then take a decision. So how do you do this? You have to give, out of the 40 minutes that you have, 6 to 7 minutes in going through all the 5 sets. Remember, the difference here is you are not in the strategy 1. If you find that a set is easy and you have read it, spent time of about 2 minutes, you continue that set. You don't look at the next set. Whereas in strategy 2, here you are saying, you're only marking your zones of comfort once again. Familiarity and the set complexity. Based on these 2 parameters, you take a decision whether you want to solve it or not solve it. At the end of the 6th or the 7th minute, You will decide, okay, set 1, set 3, set 5 I will solve, or set 1, set 2 and set 4 I will solve, or whichever 3 sets or 4 sets that I will solve, in that order of your ability, familiarity, confidence, competence, whatever that may be. Here again, what you can do is, now you have done, you have 6-7 minutes gone, maybe 8 minutes gone, you have about 32 minutes to do. You can divide those 3 sets that you want to solve, about giving 10-12 minutes for each set, so that you again attempt anywhere between 13 to 14 questions. Remember, 13 to 14 questions, if you can get even 10-11 right, or 10 right out of 14 questions, will still be 26 marks, which is fantastic score in a data interpretation section. And lastly, we come to the quantitative section. In the quantitative section, once again, I give you 2 strategies. The first strategy, again oft repeated, quite a very comfortable thing to do, is to do things in 2 rounds. We call it the round-wise attempt strategy. What do you do here? Divide your time, 40 minutes, into 2 sets of 26 minutes and 12 minutes. Now you might say, sir, 40 minutes, you are added up only 38 minutes. No, 2 minutes will go waste any which way. Remember, even in data interpretation, I said 6-7 minutes, added 12, 10, 10, that is 32. You still will lose 1 or 2 minutes somewhere with even before you know. Same case probably will happen with your VARC also. So it's okay. 1-2 minute, 60 seconds to 120 seconds get lost in an exam, even in a high pressured exam like that. So 26 minutes round 1, 12 minutes round 2. What do you do in the round 1? Attempt all easy questions. It is easier said than done. But when I'm saying easy questions, here is where I come back to. Remember, you have your zones of comfort. Remember the first thing I said, your elements of success. So you are very good, good or bad or not good in one section. Similarly, you know that every question that comes in either is easy, moderate or difficult. So while you are reading the question, you need to quickly assess 2 things once again. One, whether it is a easy, moderate or a difficult question based on the complexity, based on the kind of a concept that is used to solve that. 2, also based on your comfort zone in that area. If it is an arithmetic area, for example, it is time, speed and distance, or a time and work, or a averages, mixtures, allegation, or even a simple ratio, proportion, variation question. If you are good in that, you know that, and you also see that it is not very complex, it's not very lengthy. Complex could also mean not very lengthy. You will pick up that question. That way, in the first round of 26 minutes, you come to the last question. If there are 22 questions which are given in quantitative section, which is what that been happening for the last few years in CAT, in the 26th minute, you should have touched or rather read all 22 questions and probably solved 8-9 questions, which were easy. Easy for who? Easy for you. And how do you decide? Again, as I said, your zones of comfort and the CAT exam. In the second round, while doing that first round, you also mark those questions which are moderately difficult. You know you can solve, but you know that it will take you 2-3 minutes. Whereas the easy questions will take you less than a minute or minute and a half. In the first round, once you have marked it, second round becomes extremely simple because now you have about 12 minutes. You would have marked about 7-8 questions. From these 7-8 questions, pick up 3-4, whatever number that is possible that you can solve. You might give 2.5 minutes to 3 minutes to each of the questions and solve 13-14 questions. 13-14 questions getting a 90% accuracy. Unlike in verbal RC, here your accuracy could be higher for a simple reason that you are only picking up the easier ones or the moderate ones which are not really difficult in that sense. And therefore, your percentile in that section can also be much higher. In section-wise videos that we are going to showcase, we will go much deeper into how do you ensure that you decide each question correctly. This is strategy 1, round-wise. There is one more strategy which is a straightforward time division strategy. You have 40 minutes, divide them into 10, 10, 10, 10. Very easy to look at it. You have 22 questions. First 10 minutes, 6 questions. Next 10 minutes, 6 questions, then 5 and then 5. Or it could be 5, 6, 6 and 5. Why 5, 6, 6 and 5 or 6, 6 and 5? Because first 10 minutes might take you a little more time to get into the groove. Once you get into the groove, you do better. And at the end of it, again, you will kind of fall back on your speeds as such. The whole idea is you look at almost like a sectional, a slip test of 10 minutes. 10 minutes, 6 questions. You quickly see the 6 questions, pick the 2 or 3 or 4 that questions that you want to solve, quickly solve them. Remember now, if you glance through the first 6 questions, it will not take you more than 2 minutes, maximum. You have 8 minutes. You also know what are the familiar areas that you know, what are the strength areas you know. Pick up that 3 questions or 4 questions from that 6 which you have seen. You have 8 minutes to do. You can do 4 questions or even at least 3 questions. Likewise, 3 into 4 is 12, 4 into 4 is 16. You can come up to 17 questions. And even if you're not very, very good in quantitative ability, it's okay. You will do at least 10, 11 questions. And 10, 11 questions with a high level of accuracy. Here what is happening is, again, you are looking at questions in chunk of 6, 6 or 5, 5 each. When you're looking at chunk of 6, 6 questions and picking up 2 or 3 easy ones from that 6, you are not missing out on any easy questions at all. Because one of the biggest problems in CAT exam is when you come out of an exam, you don't want to kick your backside saying that you missed an easy question. So a strategy, all these strategies, there is one thing which very clearly focuses on, and that focus is to ensure that you read every question. You don't come out of an exam hall without reading a set or a question at the end of the exam. This will ensure that what you are good at, how good you are, and if you are comfortable in certain areas, if there is certain capability that you have, an ability that you have, that ability gets translated into your attempts and therefore your scores. Yes, sometimes you make more silly mistakes and less silly mistakes, that we will set aside for the moment. But what is important is you need to have a plan for every mock that you write. Adhere to the plan. Once you have decided that this is the kind of a strategy that you will take up for writing these mocks for each of the sections again, analyze that at the end of it, say whether this is really working or not, and then change the strategy accordingly. If you look at what this entire video was, for each of the sections I have given you two strategies. There could be many more. Try it out for yourself, experiment that, and make sure by the time you go to the actual D-Day, the actual CAT exam, you know how to attempt each section. You know almost for sure what should be the kind of an attempt you need to aim for. Why? Because you would by then know what is your average accuracy levels also. And that will make your CAT exam very easy, and chances of getting a 95 percentile much better, and a 99 percentile very much in the realm of possibility. We at Careers 360 are coming out for many videos, but more interestingly, some material for you to make your preparation really worthwhile. For CAT 2025, Career 360 is coming up with 20 full mock tests with explanations. Please register and start those 20 full mocks. More than sufficient for you to crack that. In addition to that, the last 10 years papers, the past 10 years paper question papers with answers are also going to be provided to you under the practice series through Careers 360. I think this is a great opportunity for you. Make sure you make the best out of all the resources available to you. Thank you so much.